In this episode of Unpacked,
those are the people that abused me and sexually harassed me.
A sex worker being raped,
Yes.
and she just cannot even trust in a system to protect her.
Why can't we just arrest everyone, even our grannies that we're supporting, and even the kids? Go and take my child at school and go and arrest the child. We're crying for our fellow sex workers that passed on.
Today's two guests join me today to discuss their work, and their work is sex work. These are their stories. Let's unpack. Constance Mathe and Zelda Mahlati are both sex workers who have been in the industry for over 15 years and are not afraid to speak out and fight for the rights of sex workers. Through their own personal experiences, these activists are advocating for the decriminalization of sex work in South Africa. Today, they take us into their world and share with us their journey and struggles as sex workers in South Africa. These are their stories. Let's unpack. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us in studio right here on Unpacked. Constance, okay.
I'm all right, and you?
I am good, Zelda, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
All right, so Constance, what made you feel comfortable enough to actually come and have this conversation? Because we know that there's been uproar recently, the same continuous conversation about decriminalizing sex work.
I feel like if I don't take a step as a person and come forward to speak on behalf of my people, no one can do that. And I feel like people, our community, they don't understand what's happening out there in the industry, as well as what is happening, the criminalization law, what does to the sex workers. So I feel like if I don't say it for the person coming from the person in the industry, the people, they won't gonna understand.
And for your side, Zelda?
I will take this opportunity and say thank you so much. As a sex worker, I feel it's a good platform for us to voice out, even for the others that are not even here. So I'm just here to speak on behalf of every sex worker that is around South Africa, even the ones that are migrant sex workers that are in South Africa. All their issues, as a human rights defender, I have them. So I need to speak them out and share them with the world, and on how sex workers' lives are criminalized and how is the impact of criminalization impacts on sex workers' life.
You know, sex work is usually called the oldest profession in the world. Ne? Do you agree with it?
Yes, we do.
You also agree with it?
Yes, I do, because I believe it has been existing and people have been doing it, but they all have been doing it underground. Since now we have organizations that have been stepping in, speaking of on behalf of sex workers, like Sisonke, the movement of sex workers. That's the only movement of sex workers in South Africa that we have. And we also, as SWET, Sex Workers Education and Advocacy Task Force, we're standing out for sex workers. So this is a good platform for us to engage and speak on our human rights violation that we experience under criminalization of sex workers in South Africa. Yes.
I think it's also important, you know, when we have these conversations, to put a face, to put a story to the reality that you're facing. Sometimes when you know, if you hear on radio or on the news sex work being spoken about, it's there. It's not here. Now somebody at home is like, this is a real person with other real issues. So let's take back to what brought you into sex work. Because people have this belief that the people who go into sex work, they only go there because there's nothing else they can do.
Oh my goodness. Sounds so funny. Okay, as you're speaking with me, I'm a graduate. I'm a business management graduate, and I'm pursuing my other diploma on project management. I'm still studying further. But if you ask me, can you quit sex work? I'll tell you no, for no reason. Because that is the first job that makes me to drive my own car. That is the first job that makes me to buy my own house. So I'll never do anything to quit sex work. So the reason why I enter in the industry, I was coming from a very poor background. 1, 2, there was an abuse at home. The people that I thought that I was staying with my stepmother and my stepfather. So the people that I told that these are my parents, they can protect me. Those are the people that abused me and sexually harassed me. So I felt like my home is not comfortable.
It's not safe.
Yeah, I become trafficked in my father's house because that was my latest father's house. So I have to leave the home.
What does that mean when you say you became trafficked in your father's house?
I wasn't allowed to go to school. I wasn't allowed to play with other kids. My job was to just stay at home, wash dishes, wash clothes, and I wasn't allowed to visit anyone. So my life was just ended like that.
And did he get people to pay basically to come and abuse you?
No, my stepfather did.
And from your side, Zelda, what was it that brought you into the industry?
Yeah, for me, I would say it's flexibility of the industry on how one can make instant money, money that you don't have to take it from your managers or your bosses. Now, I would say I'm also an entrepreneur working on my own. I'm also managing myself. So it is quite something that I would say for me, it is working because I can have time when I want to go to work professionally, like in the office. But now I know even if I want to go outside and work, I can also work. So it's the thing that I wanted money and instant money so that I can help even at home as the breadwinner because I'm the firstborn from my mother and my father's side. So as the person that saw challenges at home, I wouldn't say that we were poor or anything happened like in a slavery way or whatever way. But the drive that I got, it was just to provide for them, not to see what kind of work that I'm doing. Like, yeah. So for me, it was just like, let me have money that will be flowing. Like, I need to cover some stuff as the older sibling to my sisters and brothers.
And I mean, let's not take away from the fact that while sex work in itself is stigmatized, it's looked down upon, there's so many assumptions, you both are here speaking that you're able to provide for yourselves and for your families.
Yeah.
From your side, Constance, I mean, did you have somebody that actually mentored you in the space, or did you have to figure it out for yourself? Because you've been in the industry for over a decade.
Yeah, over a decade. I almost forgot.
How many years?
Decade. It's 15. I think by the middle of this year, I'll be turning 16 years in the industry.
Did you have somebody that actually guided you to say, don't do this, or did you just figure it out for yourself?
No, I had someone who did guided me. So I want to say it wasn't like he guided me. It was my colleague I was working with. So the thing is, like, most of the people, the way they perceive sex work, they always see the street-based sex work. So it's like any other job out there. There is people who are cleaners. There is people who are receptionists, secretary, and then we go on and on. Managers, directors will reach there. So in the sex industry as well, there is street-based sex workers, there is brothel sex workers, there is strippers, there is also the online sex workers, there is also international online sex workers. So it depends about which level you are and where you recruited. Maybe the people that mentored me, they didn't mentor me from the street-based. I started exactly in the brothels. Then I saw that it didn't work. Then I move on, until now I'm on the platforms of the international spaces. So the level and the understanding of a sex worker, people always have a picture of a sex worker walking on the street. So which every time they always categorize a sex worker in a certain way, in a certain manner, because her income is lower. So we mustn't judge the person about the income that is lower. And then we categorize everyone, or we just look at like everyone is getting that lower income. So that's why they always see the sex work industry like it doesn't have income at all. So this is how people perceive the sex working industry. So the people that brought me in the industry, it was the people, a white woman actually, because it's always about a black woman being a sex worker, which people don't understand. I was mentored by a white woman, and all of them, they are like more than 10 of them in their group. So all of them, they are sex workers who mentored me, and they've all own houses, they own living their lives. So these are the people who mentored me into sex industry, because after when I saw the life was difficult at home, I once tried to be a domestic worker. So it didn't work for me. I didn't say being a domestic worker is bad. It didn't work for me. And then the income I was earning, it was like 1,000 rand per month. And it was a little money for me to survive. Because when I was raped by my stepfather, I end up with the 2 kids. So I'm a mother of 2. So now that income, it wasn't enough for us, for 3 people. So I decided to do something better. So I found sex work, it was a better.
And I think you raise a very important issue, that if the people's perception of sex worker is a street walking sex worker who, you know, one would maybe say is the entry level, or the one that is not at the higher level of income earners, now the perception is looked more down upon, because they don't see that person as able to pay tax. They don't see that person as able to contribute to society, to, you know, all those type of things. Zelda, from your perspective, did you have somebody that mentored you and guided you, or did you also just figure it out as you went along?
I had friends, like lesbian friends, I would say. We all had that perception of like saying, yes, we know our situations at home and other stuff, people that were my peers, lesbian peers. So no one would say, like, I was recruited, we spoke about these things, how can we do it and how can we make money? Just by pep talking, we ended up trying to speak about sex working, how can we do it? Because we know our clientele. So and that thing, it made me to kind of like say, let me do research more for like personally, so I can know what I'm getting myself into. As much as I wanted fast cash, but I wanted to know the industry, like on how I would work it out as a lesbian sex worker. So with my peers, we spoke of these things like, yeah, let's date older women. We profile them, we check their profiles, people that we would benefit from doing sex with them. Because I believe even if you're not a sex worker, there are people that have sex with them and they don't want to be mentioned or be seen as sex workers, but they all do it for benefits and all that. So,
and that's something I want to ask you about later. Is, you know, how strict is the definition of what a sex worker is? Because there are people who have certain financial benefits.
Yes. So yeah, we would screen people like from the social media, or Ads Africa, where we do, like, that's the platform where we can get clients. So for us, we would screen people and then we would say, okay, if I've spoken to you maybe via inbox and all that stuff, then we agreed on this term. But mostly I would only target like widows, divorced people, because I don't want to get myself into trouble, like into doing a business with someone I know, or someone I know that has got a relationship, because you would feel even like I was from Cape Town, but I'm in Johannesburg, meaning I've migrated from where I was staying because of I see that this can work for me if I'm not in my area of birth, so that people won't discriminate me more, so I can Google people or just surf around and see which platform can work for me, so that I can do my sex working freely without like my people knowing that I am doing it. But now I am an activist that is outly speaking of sex workers, like human rights violations. So I believe as a sex worker, I need to speak out of all the issues that sex workers face. Yes, I would use the social media platform to get sex workers, but I feel I'm safer more in like, as I'm not in my environment or place of birth. Now I can do my work freely, because most sex workers do migrate because they don't want to be discriminated more. Yeah. It's not fun, even if it's someone who you don't know who discriminates you. But for the fact that you are away from where you've been staying from, it is better because you won't mind much. But for us as lesbian sex workers, we don't experience much human rights violation than FSW, sex workers, like female sex workers and trans sex workers, because most cases that rises up are for female sex workers and trans sex workers.
Can I actually ask a question, just so we are knowing we're speaking about the same thing?
Please.
When you say lesbian sex worker, do you mean you are lesbian
yes.
and your clients are only female?
Female sex, yeah.
Okay, so you also, you are lesbian, but you also only have female clients.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
but there are lesbian sex workers who are fine to have male clients.
Yes, yeah, it depends where.
What the preference is.
Yeah.
And then on that note, are you open to having female clients?
Yes, I am. I'm a bisexual, so I don't have a problem with that.
Are you bisexual in your work or also in real life?
No, at work only.
At work only. I got you
Not
completely.
in real life.
I got you completely. Zelda, you mentioned something very important about which sex workers are the most vulnerable.
Yes.
You've alluded, obviously, to the fact that, you're probably safer with a female client than if you're with a male client. And I don't want to make assumptions about, the trans sex workers. So maybe give us some info on that so that we can get a better picture about why certain individuals in the industry are more vulnerable than others.
Okay, let me speak for FSW. FSW means female sex workers, and TG is also transgendered sex workers. They mostly experience high levels of human rights violation, would say, because some people do not understand the notion behind the fact that people are transitioning from their original birth into somebody else now when it's new. So for them, it is taboo, and they use spiritual values, like views, when they say, like, you cannot be changing yourself into this and all that stuff. Like, they're trying to correct transgendered people while they are in the correct body where they wanted to be. Yeah, you understand. And then when it comes to female sex workers, like, people would also judge them with the moral values when they say you are a female. How come you be doing like things like this? Don't you have some type of work that you can do as a female sex worker? But there are choices. People are forgetting there are choices around the jobs that we can take as human beings, besides the fact that we are sex workers.
Is this discrimination coming from potential clients or just society as a whole?
Societal, even clients and all that stuff. Because even clients can act at some point as if they're fine with you because they know they are the buyers of sex and they know where to get sex workers. But at some point, you know how patriarchy it is, like how it comes out. People tend to react because they want to change situations, and mostly on the industry of sex workers, it's female sex workers that experience the high levels, even like in the TG sex workers that experience like more and more like insults, human rights violation, all that stuff. Because we have cases where we find that like transgender sex workers are being killed, and those cases exist because we document them as the service users, as the organization that works with sex workers. Same applies with the female sex workers. That's why we have the campaign that is called Say Her Name. Say Her Name campaign. It's coming out from the human rights defending program, where we can actually speak of those people that have died, like we know who was working at this place, but who died because of sex working related issues. So we're trying to combine everyone that has died under criminalization, because we believe if you can have decriminalization of sex work, people would start stopping like harassing sex workers, stigmatizing them, discriminating them, and threatening them, and even killing them and all that stuff. Even with the kids of sex workers today, they are not safe because people are trying to show them like your mother is doing A, B, C, and E, and even at school, kids are coming out of school and telling their parents, me at school, people are telling me that you're doing this A, B, C, and D, and whoever was killed somewhere because of the job that they're doing, please, ma'am, try to refrain from those stuff. But again, we have Mother for Future. Mother for Future is one of the projects that encompasses the female sex workers, even the children of sex workers. If we find that there's a situation that a kid needs maybe counseling, we take them through. We work even with kids because we know that sex workers have kids and they are mothers after all that stuff. So such campaigns like Mother for Futures and Say Her Name campaigns are trying to voice out issues of sex workers that we need to rectify under criminalization. Because if we can get decriminalization of sex working, meaning we would be able to report cases, we'd be able to assess services that we don't assess as sex workers. So we need to be pushing for decriminalization of sex working because it would change many things. Sex workers will be able to go and open cases without being discriminated or like being stigmatized or being told anything else like bad things. You understand? Because we have cases where sex workers go and try to open a case, and then they don't like become able to open them because of the nature of work they're doing. And remember, also police, they profile sex workers because they know that in poly and whatever street, that's where we can get sex workers. So most of the time they go and like give sex workers fine or arrest them under charges of Sexual Offences Act. And at some point, they don't even write the real thing that happened. Because if you would see, like, if a sex worker is standing, hasn't been doing anything, why should you be arresting that person? And why are you forgetting that person is a woman, that she needs to do something, like, for her kids and all that stuff? So,
and the hardest part for me is hearing the stories of a sex worker being raped.
Yes.
And she just cannot even trust in a system to protect her.
Yeah.
Because firstly, already society is like, what... I remember when I was doing a radio show, one of the callers or listeners could not understand how a sex worker can be raped. Exactly. They couldn't understand because they're like, but it's your job.
Yeah.
And it's like, but it's also your choice.
Yeah.
You know, so if the answer is no, even in the middle of a transaction with a client, you should be able to say no because you don't feel safe, etc. I don't know what your views are on that, Constance. Have you encountered any situations where any of your colleagues or peers have experienced sexual assault, but because the system is set up against them, they're not able to do anything about it?
Most of the times, let me start with the police, actually, because our main people that we have a problem with is the police. Actually, we don't have a problem with the police. They are the one that have a problem with us. So the police are the most people that's supposed to protect each and every citizen of the country. So as the people that's supposed to protect the citizens of the country, these are the people that they turn all the cases against the people again at the same time. If you are a sex worker and you are being raped, and you go and report a case, the first question it will be like, what were you doing? Where were you? What time? Once you answer those 3 questions, they are done with you. Then you can't be raped. They don't believe you can be raped. This is what happens. And then they chase you back to the society. And then the society, there is nothing that they can do. And then you tell your family member, it's hardly for other sex workers to disclose, even to share with your family members and say, you know what? You know my job. I was there. This happened to me. I need help. Or let's go to the doctor and whatsoever. They are scared. You go to a doctor, the doctor will say J88. Go and fetch it at the police station. Now you are walking up and down. You are being raped. We are talking about a traumatized person. You haven't seen a counselor or a psychologist. You have been raped and he can't even go again and make money out there. He's just walking up and down. At the end of the day, it leaves a person damaged and more vulnerable. And let me just generalize. When we are talking about the sex worker, I want people to start thinking in a perspective of a woman. Every woman in South Africa is being raped. So if every woman is being raped in South Africa and thinking that it's more like every woman is being turned, you can find thousands of... I have worked with the rape crisis before. You find out that sex workers are not the only people that have been raped. Many other women have been raped. So if a woman who's not a sex worker, she was coming from her job, she's a police officer, she's coming from her work, and she's being raped. And the police cannot help another fellow woman. This is what is happening in our society. We turn against each other. There is some woman who can see this is a woman, and this woman, she needs help, and this woman, she's being raped. I'm talking now from a Black feminist background. Like, as a feminist, we're supposed to stand together as women. We are not allowed the people to laugh at us. Whether what kind, regardless job you are doing, you are a woman. If I come to you and crying and say, this happens to you, you're supposed to assist me, not to make me a laughing stock and tell the neighbor and make fun of me. Just because she's a sex worker, she's selling her body and this is what happens to her. No. your struggle is not my struggle. And we don't have the same struggle. So you won't going to understand me and I won't going to understand you. The fact you choose to be a nurse, I don't know the reasons. You know your reasons. Each and every job, you've got challenges. So just because my job has a challenge of a rep, so don't say that my job is wrong.
No,
I love my job.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that people need to understand. When I come to the society and say, the police officer didn't help, that police officer need to face the charges, need to face the law. Because you can find out some of the sex workers are being raped by the police officers inside the cells several times. We have reported
they can
nothing.
Do. Yeah.
And these
already
cases,
there's no voice.
Yes, cannot be prosecuted, not at all. So these are the issues that we are trying to highlight, that right under the protection of the sex workers are dying, are being raped, just because you are a sex worker.
Can I ask, Zelda, you were going to say something that you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add on what Constance is saying. Like, we have cases where sex workers have been reporting cases of rape and their hardship when it comes to opening cases. But because of we have human rights defenders working within SWET, where they accompany a sex worker when they're having such challenges in the police stations. So in that route, I would say there's something that is happening like around here. I would talk about Johannesburg from the cases that I've went with sex workers at the police station, because they are my fellow colleagues and my fellow sisters. So we've tried opening cases, and successful cases where, like, cases of rape. I won't be speaking of cases like Constance has been saying, like, it is happening. Sex workers are being raped, and some, they don't want to speak of those issues at the police cells. But with the manner of opening a case now, things are becoming a little bit easier when there's a representative of a sex worker, because that thing of discrimination, it is there and it is inside. And we've been having challenges of police stations like around Johannesburg when they're doing the same thing of not opening cases for sex workers, but human rights defenders now are tapping in, and then that creates at least a strong foundation even for sex workers to say, please accompany me, let's go. Now we are able to open cases. Even in Mpumalanga, we have cases that we open against police, where cases are being taken to IPID because they feel this is a human rights problem, beside the fact that someone is doing sex work and it is criminalized. There are so many things that are criminalized that people that don't have to do, but people are focusing on sex workers, and they even making it hard for sex workers to open cases while they have experienced high levels of violence. So now we're speaking under human rights perspective. How about we start with the human being first, without speaking of the type of work they're doing? Can they also live under the human rights
because
bill?
Human rights are for everybody,
Yes.
and that's the moral of the story. And I think that's the big part of the conversation that we're having.
Yes, and now we're inviting even police for our sensitization programs, where they do come, and they do come with numbers at some areas, but in some areas we still struggle because we feel there are high levels of discrimination and stigmatization when it comes to sex workers, and these people don't want to be educated. You can see when one doesn't want to change their perspective because of they feel I have powers and this will stop. But mostly when I sensitize like police, I would say, let's take a step back and speak of the LGBTIs.
And I want us to come back to that. I definitely want us to come back to the community, because I think there's aspects of that we also need to touch on. So, ladies, I think obviously we've raised some of the big general issues, but I want to come back to, for yourself, Constance, what are your own personal struggles that maybe, particularly in this industry, how it affects your life, that maybe somebody at home would never even be aware of?
Okay, first of all, I will say the criminalization. The criminalization, it doesn't affect only me, because it's affecting my children as well. Because according to the law and the constitution of this country, it says anyone who benefit from the industry is a criminal. So this law was passed since 1957. Since this law was passed in 1957, we have seen many places where we see, and many institute that they have been decriminalized. Ganja have been decriminalized. Abortion have been decriminalized. There are too many places where they have been decriminalized. What makes the law and the blockage of the decriminalization of sex work? First of all, I would like to say people, when they are looking at the decriminalization of sex work, they must not think about the moral issue.
Because it's two different issues.
Yes. Yeah. Just because I'm a Christian, I'm a Hindu, I'm a Muslim, and my culture, your culture, that's your culture. We respect that. Let's think about the human rights. Each and every South African deserves the human rights. So let's just look at the sex work as a human rights issue. And then start thinking about the decriminalization of sex work. What are we decriminalizing? And who wants the decriminalization? Do not make the choices of the law for the people. Allow people to make the choices. We have seen the criminalization doesn't work. We have looked into the legalization doesn't work. We have looked into partial decriminalization because it has been implemented in other countries. That law doesn't work for us. As we are looking the diversity and the huge country that we have, beautiful country and a beautiful constitution that we have, South Africa. So we feel like decriminalization is the only way to go forward. And secondly, the viewers out there, what they have to do, they need to remove a mindset that a sex worker is someone who doesn't have education, not at all. Okay. And secondly, they have to remove the thinking of a sex worker is not a mother or not a fit mother. That is another thing. And then the other thing...
Or maybe even a wife as well.
That's the
Affect
thing.
anything, yeah.
Because the other thing, I'm not here to expose or disclose who's in the industry, who's not in the industry. But if you ask me, we are billions of us in the industry. Some people are working undercover. For example, if you have got 5 boyfriends and we are collecting money and sleeping with them, ask yourself, what are you doing? If you are a man having 5 girlfriends and sleeping with all of them, collecting money, their salaries, in the name of the patriarchy voice, and what are you doing? Ask yourself. So I'll leave it there. And then the other thing that I want, sex work won't gonna be trafficking. Trafficking, as I said earlier before, I was trafficked in my father's house when I was a kid. When I didn't know anything, I was innocent. So think about trafficking. Trafficking, anyone can traffic. But just because we are still criminalized in this industry, I know the places, and sex workers know the places because work day and night, but I cannot point to the places where trafficking takes place because they will ask me questions that I cannot answer.
Because also now you can't even help the police if you're aware of criminal behavior that you observe, that you are privy to, because you yourself become non-credible because as far as they're concerned, you are a criminal.
I'm admitting I'm a criminal. Instead of to go and arrest those ones, they'll start with this criminal here who come and open their mouth. These are the issues that people need to learn and understand. The industry is here. The industry is not going. We have seen people coming in the industry. Right now, during the COVID-19, people lost their jobs. When I was going on the website, scrolling, I see thousands of new faces. So people join the website, and no one will tell you what she's doing. This is what we have to know. At least Constance, she's honest. Just to tell yourself and being honest, like, yes, I'm a sex worker.
Can I ask you, Zelda? You know, I sometimes think to myself, the interesting thing about the criminalization of sex work is that the people that are making those decisions are probably benefiting from the industry remaining criminal.
Exactly. Anyone that knows a sex worker or anyone who has seen a sex worker, anyone who have arrested a sex worker, even as police, for knowing that one is a sex worker, you are all criminalized in South Africa, meaning even your own kids. Okay, let's speak of someone. Let's say I've got my grandmother that I'm staying with. She needs medication and other stuff, and I go and work for my grandmother. She's also criminalized as a sick grandmother because she's like benefiting from the earnings of a sex worker. So everyone is a sex worker. Like, it is criminalized. Even the police that knows what sex working is done where.
I was going to say, how do the police even know you're a sex worker if they don't know somebody who's a client that they are not arresting?
Yeah, and even like when we're thinking of this law, it is not working. Even the one that the lawmakers who made the law, it doesn't work because we should be building like jails. More cells for everyone, for the whole country, for knowing the fact that there are sex workers that exist, even if you stay with them. You understand? Even the brothel owners, knowing that there's a brothel owner or there's an operation of sex working, you're also criminalized for knowing. And that's under the Constitution. So everyone is criminalized, but why are we targeting women? Why can't we just arrest everyone, even our grannies that we're supporting? Even the kids, go and take my child at school and go and arrest the child. Because the child is benefiting, even if the child doesn't know, for the fact that the child is benefiting from my sex working. Even the landlord for taking my money also is criminalized because they know Guti, I work
even
outside.
Everyone, because they're collecting.
So we asking
collecting from
ShopRite, Woolworth, Jet,
you go to buy at ShopRite as a sex worker, even if I'm buying like ice cone or ice cream, for the fact that you took money from sex worker, even ShopRite in Aye is like criminalized. Everyone is criminalized. That's why I'm saying, let's build jail. Let's all go and stay in jail because we all know the truth. And this thing is happening. And we are operating and we're going nowhere. We just want decriminalization. Like, as I said before, Guti, like people are getting like fresh and ready to arrest sex workers. Forgetting Guti, even before they were like fresh and getting ready to arrest LGBTIs. Today, it's no longer like that. Like LGBTIs are working free. No man was supposed to be seen holding like arms, like hands with another man.
Even at some point, it was illegal to have a partner who's of a different race to you.
Yes, yes, exactly.
So we need to move to a certain point.
Laws.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up. Constance, some of your personal aspirations. You've already said you will never quit sex work. It works for you. You're still looking to pursue your education. Are you looking to grow your business, or what are your personal hopes in the space?
Okay, my personal hope is, that you should turn 65 years. When you're 65 years, you get old. So I can kindly use my education after 65 years. When I see that, I need to do something. Of course, I'm working for ACG Coalition right now. It doesn't mean that I'm working for ACG Coalition because of the money. It's because the voices and pushing for decriminalization of sex work because of the vulnerability. Especially Zelda touched the sex workers who are more vulnerable, the street-based sex workers. I always worry the street-based sex workers are suffering. They are really struggling. So we are trying as well as much as other sex workers to try and educate them to start using online and try to shift a little bit. But still more, the criminal laws still follow us. They are closing the website. Now there was an issue. They are trying to tax the websites as well. People who advertise, so they always find their way. So this is what I want to do when I retire. I want to just use it for myself. I'll check what I'm going to do with it after that.
And from your side?
I'll continue being an activist, speaking out for sex workers, even if I retire at any age, but I won't be saying at what age, because I do not know. As I said before, the industry is very flexible. So as I'm still fresh and going and running, I'm still going to be doing this. But still, I need to speak out of all the cases of sex workers that were never taken serious, case that fell off. So we just need to engage with the people, hire people, let them talk back to us and tell us why with our cases. Like, we don't have straight things, you understand, but we need to know what happened with the cases. Because we need
feedback.
Justice.
You need some follow-up, you need feedback.
And also we need justice because people's lives matters, more especially even the dead ones. We're crying for our fellow sex workers that passed on. We don't know what happened of their cases, but we need cases that we know that we did this one and it is successful. Then justice is served. So we don't want our cases to just fall off. We want cases that we know that we would say this case is referred, and then it worked because we're voicing out human rights violation. Besides the fact that we're speaking of cases of sex workers, but let's take sex workers as human beings first, and also their cases must be done like anybody else's cases is done. Let's not our statements just disappear because these things are happening, and most sex workers, they rely on us as the organization into asking, where did the case ended up? Even in Mpumalanga, as I was speaking about the IPID case, we had a case in IPID, but it fell off on 22 February. But even sex workers felt to even if we can open cases, but there's nothing done. We just need justice on all levels of power.
Zelda and Constance, thank you so much for joining in on this conversation and also just for sharing your own personal experiences. I know you coming out publicly, you are also making yourselves more exposed to discrimination because your faces are out there. You're speaking about an industry that we say is the oldest profession in the world, yet no one wants to accept it. No one wants to decriminalize it. And of course, also for yourself, Zelda, for speaking on behalf of the community and for those that are more vulnerable than others. I think it's important that we acknowledge that it's not a small thing. You have families, you have children. You also are contributing members to society. But more importantly, you are human. And we are all human. Hashtag Unpacked with Relebogile. I hope you join in on the conversations. Thank you so much for joining us. Some of these conversations are difficult. Some of you are uncomfortable. Some of you completely disagree, but we still want to hear from you. That's the only way that we'll move forward as a collective. Thank you for joining us this evening. Have a good night. Next time on Unpacked.
I'll look at myself in the mirror and say, I hope one day I look like other people.
Do you consider albinism a disability?
If somebody thinks that you are a curse, they're not going to hire you.
Unpacked with Relebogile Mabotja. New episodes weekdays at 5:30 p.m. on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. Television edited broadcasts weekdays at 5 p.m. Open up to S3.